You know, I guess a good place to start right now is that our circumstances do not define who we are in the midst of things. And one of the challenges I face all the time is circumstances around me are not exactly the way I want them. I don't know about you, your lives are probably perfect. But in my life, circumstances can often not be just the way I want them. And then the challenge is, do I get off course? Do I stay on course? Do I choose the highest course? Do I pause? Do I breathe in the moment to be on my highest course? When a situation challenges us in practice, do we become a reflection of the stress? Do I become an echo of what already maybe isn't ideal? Or do I dig deeper and find the highest ideals? It's always my choice. And I love to watch what happens in the office when my ideals climb higher. When my choice and my thoughts is warm, it is joy, it is love. It's ready to roll? Yay! So when my choice in the office is of joy and love, it's amazing how the phone rings, yes? New patients drop in. People who haven't been around a while just show up. So, all right, I'm going to start my timing now, and let's roll. So my conversation is about death and truth. And really what I'm sharing with you tonight is a conversation that I'm in the process of for me. And therefore I bring it to you because the older I get at this, the more I realize that when I listen to speakers speak on what they're speaking of, that sounds like they're speaking to, what I've learned is what they're really doing is speaking from things that they need to talk out and sort out and grow through. That's really what's happening, is the speaker is in front of you working through their process. Or at least that's what I've discovered about myself. And so my conversation today is about death and truth. And some of the things that strike me about death and truth is how prevalent it is that when death shows up, it changes the game, yes? Has anyone here had anyone die who meant something to them? When death shows up, does it not change many people's lives? Besides the obvious one of the person who's no longer speaking before you, but yourself and those around. Death is an ultimate game changer. How did Steve Jobs say it? He said, death. Well, he said more than that. Oh, here it is. Life's greatest change agent. I love when someone can say something large in the least number of words. Death is life's greatest change agent. So the package that I want to put this conversation about death and truth into is a sentence that I open all research seminars with, and it's something I would urge us as chiropractors to have on the tip of our tongue because it's relevant to us talking to other people intelligent about science, which is this. No one sees the world as it is. This is me in practice. We just put the sign back on the practice 27 weeks ago, and we are already at the biggest numbers we've ever seen. We had to hang the banner over it because we reproclaimed it DePice Chiropractic. It's awesome. The TLC coaching element is bigger and better than it's ever been, changing the lives of more people than ever before. We just bought a new office building. And we're now moving the TLC coaching headquarters to the upper floors and TLC Chiropractic, the practice, on the ground floor. So it is going to be one epically beautiful place, a domicile, a dwelling for chiropractors to come and watch a pulse beat of chiropractic alive and well in Pennsylvania. People can come and train as chiropractors, as CAs. It's a teaching institution from above down, inside and out. Life is great. And no one sees the world as it is. No one sees the world as it is. They see it ultimately as they are. And the challenge is, who are we in the midst of each moment? Who am I? Right? I shouldn't be here to lecture you and tell you, choose chiropractic, this and that. How about I share that I'm working on the fact that I don't see the world as it is. I see the world as I am. So the best thing I can do is work on me. And in the process, may my example be more light for others. More is learned by what's caught than what is taught. May we not preach when we're not actually carrying the light. Carry the light first. So my challenge to you about this whole conversation in death is how death is such a game changer. And death creates so many moments for people in their hearts, and sometimes allows them to let go of their heads. Right? How many people have witnessed family members who aren't talking to each other in the face of a family member being near death? Other people come together to honor that person, to visit that person, to see that person. And in the face of death, relationships that were broken somehow find a connection again. Death sometimes brings that to the surface. Sometimes in the face of death, people choose to actually eat healthy finally. Sometimes in the face of death, people may choose to get chiropractic care and other things. What about once death happens? Well, in the face of the funeral, in the face of the services, in the face of the saying goodbyes, aren't there people who come to revelations, or people who become more embittered? There's changes that happen to the individuals after the death happens. And what about the years after the death, as there's reflection that goes on? The death forever leaves a resounding moment that those who carry on must reflect back to from time to time. Death is not anything that anyone can circumvent. People can't explain away death. People can't hide from death. And I put truth in the same conversation. And I think it's interesting, as I tried to sort through the issues of death and truth, people try to explain away truth. People sometimes try to circumvent the truth. People are made uncomfortable by the truth. People try to live in a story so they don't have to respect and honor and work within the guidelines of the truth. Truth and death have some parallels, and they have some vast differences. And I'm challenged at how much in chiropractic, when I talk to a patient and they tell me that death has knocked on someone's doorstep, how those people will suddenly change everything. And yet you and I need to bring conversations with that kind of impact to others. You know, I'm struck how our society handles death. In one drug application, anti-arrhythmia drugs, we know that somewhere around 56,000 people a year, according to the research, die who otherwise wouldn't have if they didn't take the anti-arrhythmia drugs. They're still prescribed, are still standard of care, and no one talks about the 56,000 deaths. But, I mean no offense, but Princess Di dies and the whole world stops. No disrespect to her, but how do you make sense of that? How do we as chiropractors make sense of that? That a whole world could be chattering about one person's death and no one's talking about 56,000 deaths just in one country over one drug. I'll tell you why. Because you and I aren't raising the conversation enough. It's our jobs to talk about truth and to be willing to face conversations about death and to be willing to be a proprietor or initiator of the uncomfortable dialogues that there are to have. Death and truth are not always easy. And as I'm maturing in my story, I'm learning a lot about how significant that is. So, no matter where you are in this story, your head and your heart are constantly in conflict, or I would say mine is for sure. How we pay attention to death, how we share about it matters. So I'm going to share with you my statement of desire. This is something we do a great deal in TLC. It helps our people find their why, and in knowing their why, they can put it behind their how, and therefore the procedures have the life of a pulsing heartbeat. My statement of desire is I love to recognize moments where connections are possible. Just that they're possible. And if they're possible, that I would be present enough and uninhibited enough to initiate them. And in initiating them, stay with them. And not be made awkward or uncomfortable or have to make jokes in the middle of it or get busy with tasks in the midst of it, but that if we connect, that I could just stay there. And in our world, it is so easy to not stay connected. Right? People sign up for things. Well, I got the information, so I'm gonna go catch up on the tasks now. Dude, it was never about the information. It was only ever about the relationship. And if it was really more about the information, then we missed the bigger part of everything. And I'm learning that more and more, in some ways, through death and other things. So I've had some amazing things happen in about an 18-month period of time. My birthday is June 21st. June 19th, several years ago, my dad died. And I was here shortly after that. I shared this story. It was amazing. He died in Jen's arms in our home. And it was one of the most, if you have to die, well, when you die, if you got to die the way my dad did in our home, loved by his kids and his grandkids playing in the middle of a birthday party in the house that we were having for David and his friends, it was just a miracle. My dad died. 6 months later, the vision in my right eye died. And after 4 retinal surgeries, it's gone. The vision in my good eye challenged, to say the least. 6 months after that, my weightlifting buddy, who I've been in the gym with 5 days a week, sometimes more, for 15 years or more, at 40 years old, ripped dude, on a Sunday in the gym for an extra workout, gets off the stair machine, feels tired, lays down on the mat in the gym and dies. 6 months after that, I get a call from my friends in Germany, and they said, "You need to come here. David's going to die of cancer." My childhood buddy. And sure enough, he dies. And about 6 months after that, my mom died. Went through 5 major life-shaking issues in 18 months. And it's about David Grasso that I'm going to tell this story. David and I went through college together, and when he reached a certain time in his life, he could write and read German and English fluently, so SAP hired him, which was based in Heidelberg, Germany. So he moved to Germany. Little by little, he became a German citizen. I always remained what he referred to as his best friend. And I referred to him as my best friend, but I never imagined it was more than, well, not until I started visiting, I'd find our pictures on the mantle and stuff. We were bros. I get a call from his best friend in Germany. Called and said, "Dean, has David called you?" I said, "No." He said, "You need to get here now. He's had metastasizing cancer. He hasn't told anyone about it. The utilities in his house are shut down. The guy's just shut off from everyone. He needs you here now." That weekend, I had a talk in Arkansas for the Arkansas Chiropractic Physicians Association with Gary Shoemaker. I called Gary and said, "We're canceling the talk. I'm going to Germany." I got to Germany only to find this is a man dying in his house, utilities off, an unflushable toilet, doors that couldn't open into rooms because they were so filled with trash. He had shut down for many months and not told anybody. So my first trip there, I was there for 5 days, and with his German buddies, we were calling utilities companies, trying to get electricity turned back on, trying to get the water turned back on, trying to clean the place. It was 5 days of insanity, and by the time I got home, all I could be grateful for is I was going to shower for about 3 days straight. When I got home, I'm on the phone with all his American counterparts, his brother, his sister. No one knew what was going on. So I was busy being the big guy, being busy. And I made a trip within 2 weeks to go back, and I called my brother. He's my confidant, he's my buddy, he's a coach of many aspects of my life. And I said, "Gary, I need your help. I'm going back, and I do not want to engage this second trip the way I engaged the first trip. Just help me get my head in the right place before I go." And Gary said, "Well, here's what I want you to do while you're there." I said, "Great," and I was ready to take notes. And he said 4 words: breathe in his space. And that's all he said. and I'm waiting for the rest. He said, "You're good. I got to go." So I flew to Germany. The first day, I sat with Dave. I read beside him. When he would fall asleep, I'd do some of my work beside where he was sleeping. Second day goes by, I did the same. Sometimes when he was nodding off for hours, I'd clean the apartment, but I'd wrap everything up and get it out because he didn't want to see me being busy. He wanted to see me be his friend. And to him, I would think, you know, reassembling his home and his life would be being his friend. No, he just wanted me to be beside him. Hence, my brother said, breathe in his space. Think how simple those words are. Whose space? His. What was I to breathe in? Space. Not congestion. Not noisy, clanking, cleaning pans. Space. Where? In it. What was I to do? Breathe. Just shut up and breathe. It was the day before I was going to leave, the last full day. I held out for 4 days. I'm sitting there, and there's piles of papers. He wrote articles constantly. So there's SAP, like newsletters, interprofessional newsletters, and I'm finding like 5 and 7 copies of the same newsletter. So I said, Dave, you know what? There's like a lot of copies of these. Let me put these in a pile so you can read the ones you want to. They're yours. And the extra ones we'll put to the paper pile. You know, he had copy machines and printers that weren't working, and I said, yeah, that ain't happening. So I said, you know, we're going to have to get rid of these. And he goes, I'm going to have them fixed. And in my mind, I'm like, Dave, you're dying. But I couldn't say that. So I went ahead and started cleaning up. And it only took a few shots before Dave, he wasn't happy. I could have stopped, but I didn't. He picks up the paper, throws him across the floor, and says, that's the effing problem with you, DePice. There, shuffles his way into his bedroom, locks the door, and never comes out. So I hang around for an hour or two. Dave doesn't come out. I'm knocking on the door. He won't respond. It's getting late enough. I go out to get a meal. I come back. No response. I text him. I call him. I go outside like a hopeless boy trying to find his date for high school as a teenager, and I look up at the 4th floor window, his bedroom light's on, and he's not responding. Finally, by 1 in the morning, I got to get to Frankfurt from Heidelberg to try and get the flight out. I had to go. And that sealed my conversations with Dave. I would never see my friend alive again. And the last thing I stirred in him was disgust and unhappiness, or a broken heart at the least. You know, I read my verse today, and it said, to be joyful in all circumstances. I don't know how many of you used the Bible app. That was the verse today. To be grateful and joyful in all circumstances. And I look at the Dave thing, and Dave gave me something. He gave me this moment where I'm talking about it. The truth needs to be spoken about. Moments where we could have been more, and maybe we can provoke light in others to be better, needs to be spoken about. And Jen and I, and everybody in the TLC community, we lose sleep to keep making everything as simple as it can possibly be for you chiropractors to constantly tell the truth. That every single week, you and I have to be doing in-house workshops. That every single week, that's where you exercise your ability to speak the truth. And in exercising it every week, then you take it in the streets to speak the truth. That speaking the truth in your office is not your luxury. It's your training camp to get the heck out and do it outside. And if you're not getting outside the building, you're not really in your practice, because your practice is not defined by the convenience of the walls of your building. Get out. If we come to New Beginnings just to feel good, because we want to feel our friendships, and then we don't go home and get the heck out and talk about it, what are you doing here other than placating yourself? If we don't go home so that we can more compellingly get out. What are we doing? You know, you look back at these people, they're all here. Jet and Kathy are here. Sam Ions here. Robin Godhofer's here. Matt and Annie Ray. These are all people sweating in the TLC community to put these monthly conversations together. We put them together for you, so all you have to do, the research is there. We have audios of me doing talks. We have videos of me doing talks, and we're just penetrating the profession with this stuff now, and all you have to do is just get out of here and do it. But you have to say, I'm up for doing what I'm uncomfortable with doing. Somebody say it. Good. Say it again. What are you up for doing? What you're what? You. I'm working on it. I'm on the road every weekend, and then I'm adjusting pisiforms to the walls Monday through Thursday. I went back because I believe the leaders of our profession have to be not only talking it, but adjusting it. Derek Wilcox in Ohio did the talk, Prescribed Epidemic, that I'm talking about. A bunch of pastors tap him on the shoulder because one pastor was in his office, heard it, said, you need to come to a pastor's conference. He did one talk. One talk. One of the things I'm talking about, at the pastor's conference, he gets injected into a pipeline of church operations where he has to do Prescribed Epidemic, which is the talk we wrote about the opioid crisis, but from the chiropractic truth. Kurt Pepperell in Ohio or Michigan does the same thing, ends up doing it for a police officer. He ends up in the pipeline of the township where the township wants to present on the opioid crisis. And they ask him to come and be the representative. Mark Kordonsky, who told me for years after doing his new patient orientation every week, which was the exact same talk over and over again, he said, you know, doing these talks every week isn't going to work in my office. Now he has, last week, 62 people at his weekly in-house workshop. So here's my challenge to you. My challenge is for you to get the heck out and do something really big. Stop living your stories and just do this. Everybody that's here from TLC this weekend doesn't want anything from you, but they want everything for you. I was supposed to have just breathed in Dave's space. And you know why I broke down? Circumstances. I looked around me and I let my obsession with being a busy guy doing tasks and cleaning up distract me from the bigger picture. I let my circumstances and my surroundings distract my heart and my mission. And I lost it. And I challenge you not to lose it. Always talk the truth. The hope is in us connecting. So I was supposed to breathe in his space. Here's my statement to you on goodbye. You're supposed to go in the streets of your town and speak the truth. And if there's a single day you aren't sweating to do that, I ask you to think of my best friend throwing his papers across the floor in disgust and saying, DePice, one of his best friends, DePice, with a heart that's broken. And that death has sealed that conversation. But you're not dead yet. So go home and speak in your streets. Amen?
Dean DePice.